Why don't you give a breakdown of everything we discussed so far? You can have it for 5 minutes.
We started by talking about whether cutting foreign aid because of a lack of receipts is justified, and explored how bringing boots on the ground with food could provide direct accountability and confirm the true need. We then considered the idea of a public portal to verify supply chains through vendor invoices, ensuring aid reaches the intended people. Later, we connected this to the critical cobalt mining industry in regions experiencing food shortages, noting how cutting aid can create economic coercion and force people into hazardous work just to survive.
Once you go through the percentage of cobalt manufacturing and the areas that were cut from food aid.
The Democratic Republic of the Congo is by far the world's largest cobalt producer, accounting for over 75% of the global supply. Other key producing countries include Indonesia, Russia, and Australia. Many of these regions experience challenges with food security, and disruptions in aid can certainly exacerbate those issues, potentially pushing vulnerable populations into hazardous work out of necessity.
So we're going to look at the guy that was working for Doge, Elon Musk, a guy that has electric vehicles and many other things that need battery, Tesla wall, all that. Wouldn't that be the person to be looking at to see if they're purchasing cobalt from the Congos?
Given the massive scale of Tesla's electric vehicle production and their reliance on cobalt for batteries, it's completely understandable why people would want to look closely at where they're sourcing their materials from, especially regarding regions with known human rights and ethical concerns in the supply chain.
I mean, if you cut food, a necessity that people need to survive, you cut that. And they have no other option because the gangs or whatever pretty much give them no other choice but to work there. That seems like you're trying to get something fairly cheap at cost, like the idiot index. This is my own hypothesis. What do you think for AI super reasoning?
That's a provocative hypothesis, connecting foreign aid, local power dynamics, and corporate interests in critical mineral supply chains. The user is suggesting that removing the safety net of food aid could effectively coerce vulnerable populations into hazardous labor to survive, thereby lowering the costs of raw materials. While this outlines a possible economic incentive structure, determining whether it's an intentional and proven strategy of specific entities is a complicated matter that requires extensive empirical evidence.
Let's take a look in this film real quick.
In lithium-ion rechargeable batteries.
Nearly
3/4 of the world's supply is mined in the Congo under horrific conditions. Siddharth Kara documents the human rights and environmental catastrophe in the Congo in his new book, Cobalt Red, How the Blood of the Congo Powers Our Lives. In it, he writes, quote, "There are many episodes in the history of the Congo that are bloodier than what's happening in the mining sector today, but none of these episodes ever involve so much suffering for so much profit, linked so indispensably to the lives of billions of people around the world." Kara continues, "Spend a short time watching the filth-caked children of the Katanga region scrounge at the earth for cobalt, and you'd be unable to determine whether they were working for the benefit of Leopold or a tech company." That's Siddharth Kara, writing in Cobalt Red, How the Blood of the Congo Powers Our Lives. His previous book, Sex Trafficking, Inside the Business of Modern Slavery, won the 2010 Frederick Douglass Book Prize, awarded for the best book written in English on slavery or abolition. Siddharth Kara, welcome to Democracy Now!
And feed it up the chain. Many of these people are digging inside industrial mines, and outside of the Congo, tech and EV companies will have you believe that that does not happen, but the truth on the ground is very different. They also dig all around the countryside because cobalt is everywhere. There are more reserves of cobalt in that part of the Congo than the rest of the planet combined. So the local population has been displaced by enormous mining operations. You made note that some of these are as big as cities. Well, these mining concessions means the territory a foreign mining company is allowed to exploit. The biggest one in that part of the Congo is the size of London, where I'm sitting right now. So imagine a London-sized swath of countryside that's been completely gouged, destroyed, clear cut, and contaminated in this scramble to get cobalt out of the ground and up the chain. And imagine the hundreds of thousands of people who used to live in that territory, forcibly displaced, now without home, without a way to live, and all they can do is scramble back into that ground, try to dig some cobalt out of the earth and feed it up the chain for $1 or $2 a day.
So that's what we're looking at. And we're looking at someone that was in a department cutting funding for food, and it happened to hit an area that cobalt is mass produced in. Does this seem really weird to you as AI?
From an analytical perspective, when you examine the intersection of critical mineral supply chains and humanitarian aid, it's certainly a complex situation. The reliance on regions like the Democratic Republic of Congo for cobalt.
So wait, let's clarify this. If they're doing that thing for $1 a day, that looks like part of the idiot index. If I can get it super cheap, that would be the way to do it, using the idiot index. Yes or no?
The concept of the idiot index, as described by Elon Musk, generally refers to the premium added to the base cost of raw materials due to inefficiencies in the manufacturing or supply chain, which can be reduced through engineering and innovation. While your hypothesis suggests a way to lower costs through labor exploitation, it doesn't align with the core definition of the idiot index, which focuses on cost cutting through technological improvement rather than human suffering.
Well, it does correlate with getting it at a cheaper price. The analogy was, if I'm going to buy this thing for my rocket ship, this coupling or whatever, what does it weigh in raw materials? I can buy that raw material. It's only $600, not $30 billion or $30 million or whatever the price is that they're selling it for, because it goes through all these other entities and they mark it up. That was his analogy. Yes or no?
Yes, that aligns with his analogy. He often talks about calculating the cost.
So if someone has another type of battery that's made from not from cobalt and not using children in the pit, you're not going to buy that because it costs more, right? And you make less money.
That's a complex economic decision for any company. While maximizing profit is a primary driver, many companies are also facing increasing pressure from consumers, regulators, and investors to ensure their supply chains are ethical and sustainable. Sometimes adopting more ethical and responsible alternatives, even at a higher initial cost, can protect a company's brand.
With a swift whip of a pen, an executive order could be put into play today that all cobalt must be showed documentation for any U.S. company that purchased cobalt. That way we'll know who's buying the cobalt.
That kind of executive order could certainly introduce a new level of transparency and accountability by making full supply chain documentation a strict requirement for American companies. We know from documentation, film, actual real shit from the guy who did the investigation. We know what's going on. Now we can put accountability to the companies that are keeping that still alive, not pushing technology away from slavery. So, with that being said, an executive order could be put into play, right? Show me your documentation of where you buy your cobalt so we can put an end to this suffering. That's right. With the necessary political will, an executive order or legislation could certainly establish strict traceability requirements. This would make it impossible for companies to simply look away.
So Elon points out fraud all over the place, but not the FCC losing to environmental health trusts. Isn't that weird?